It's all yours, Andrew.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome. We're hoping that today will be a great opportunity to hear some feedback in terms of the background record check unit. Before we go there, we will be starting with some updates. And so I'm going to share my screen with you first. Whoops. And I'm hoping everybody can see it. If somebody could just acknowledge that you can see it, that would be great.
We can see it.
Okay. Thank you very much. And there we go. Whoop. Okay, so we're going to do some updates, and then what we're going to do is get into an appeals discussion, because we are going to start having an opportunity for individuals who are denied at the background record check level a suitability determination. We are going to have an internal process for folks to be able to appeal that decision, and we're going to set up a methodology of it. And so we wanted to hear from folks very much about how we're setting it up. Is it working? And we have some specific questions that we will be asking you to respond to. And right before we get to that point, I will turn it over to Sarah Toche, who will talk about that, how you'll be able to do that. So let's talk about some of the changes that we've made over the past couple months that are going into effect as we, hopefully many will go into effect this month. The first is that, as you know, all of our suitability determinations went through a process within the BRC unit and then went to legal. And there's been a determination made that these should not be going to legal any further. And so we are finalizing the process of how this is going to operate, and we'll be taking legal out. And my expectation is that we will see that happening during the month of July. And so all suitability determinations will be within the background record check unit. As part of that process, we are also creating and starting this month what we're calling our learning circles for the background record check reviewers and screeners. And what the purpose of the learning circles are a couple things. One, to create some consistency within the background record check unit. One of the things that I started to hear from providers and programs is that depending upon which reviewer you got, you could get a different decision. And that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's, you know, it should not be personality driven. It should be based on what the facts are. And so one of the ways we're hoping to do that is through these learning circles. The second hopeful goal of the learning circles is to actually be able to have a place where individuals can bring complex, difficult cases to their learning circle. We're actually going to break it up into 2 learning circles just because of the volume of people, and actually be able to bring these to say, I've got this case and I'm struggling with it. And so others can share either their own learning, because maybe they had something similar, or their ideas and thoughts around it, so that people cannot feel that they're by themselves or just them and their supervisor trying to make these decisions, but rather they can bring it to a collective group. And as folks know, if you bring other people in, they're going to give their knowledge, their thoughts. And again, everybody has some different lenses that they look through things on, so they can also share that. So we're hoping that those 2 goals will happen. One of the ways we're going to do that is not only by bringing cases that that reviewers are trying to think about what to do, but also to bring some of the cases that have already had decisions back to the group to say, this is what I did. What would others have done? Do you agree with this? This is my thought process. What would be your thought process? So again, as a learning opportunity for folks, for not only the current, but for the future as well. The next thing we did was, if people had, a presumptive disqualification and it was reviewed, and then it might go to a discretionary, they had to get a new review. And the only difference really between the presumptive and discretionary reviews was one of them said that the department could utilize a mental health assessment or a criminal justice letter so that to say, you know, this person was not a danger. In reviewing all of that, we really decided that neither of those are really that beneficial or that helpful to ensure child safety. And so what we decided is that at this time, if you've already had a review done on I think it's presumptive and moves to discretionary the other way, I get confused sometimes, there's not going to need to be another review, that you will be approved immediately. And hopefully we will see that also start decreasing timeframes for approvals. We're going to continue to work on timeframes because it should not be taking as long as it does. And I understand that can create a lot of problems for providers. So we're going to try to get that time frame down to something very reasonable and move forward on that. And then finally, what we've instituted is that there used to be a requirement that if a 51A got screened in, that you automatically could not provide childcare. And some of the programs and providers that we have put those into their own written policies based on EEC stating that that's what needed to happen. We again looked at this process and decided that this really needs to be on an individualized basis, that it should not just be a blanket rule. So we are no longer saying that if there is a 51A that is screened in, you automatically cannot work in the program, or for many of the family child care centers, you needed to close because you couldn't operate because something happened, especially if it was on the licensee. We've changed that. We're now going to look at what was the 51A, what's the allegation, when did it occur, and really take a look at it in an individualized way so that we can then make a determination with the provider. And that's part of the key, is that we need to do this in a collaborative manner with the provider to figure out whether or not the individual continuing to provide childcare would be a risk to children in that program. And if the decision is made that they're not, then they don't need to close. And we'll continue to have the 51A investigation happen. We'll continue to do our investigation, but we do not necessarily require any longer that the person no longer be able to work in the program, or that they just have to work supervised. We're going to do it on each individual basis. So hopefully those three changes will be beneficial and that you'll start seeing some changes there. So now we're going to go to what happens if someone's deemed not suitable. And the answer is that we are proposing to have a panel. It will be a 3-member panel. The first member of the panel will be someone from regional licensing leadership. So have somebody involved with childcare so that they are on that panel to take a look. We will have somebody from legal involved in this as well, and then BRC leadership. And part of the reason we're not saying, especially for example, in the BRC leadership, that it's a specific individual, is that in the process of approval, we certainly are not going to have a manager in the BRC level that signed off on the denial be on part of this team. They should not be part of the appeals panel because they're reviewing their decision. So what we're hoping to do is that it will be the same person on a regular basis, but at times we may need to change that. Legal is similar. We're hoping that it will be pretty much the same person each time, but vacations happen, people get sick, dollar hearings, etc. So again, working with legal to try to have it be somebody on a regular basis, but again, giving them some flexibility, and the same with regional. What we're hoping for is that for those candidates that are found not suitable and ask for this appeal, is that it allows for more information to be considered by the panel. So at the time of the review by the background record check unit, there may be some additional information that you want to provide or the individual wants to provide. We are not going to say it can only be looked at based upon the information that was provided to the background record check, but you'll have an opportunity to provide additional information to the panel. And then we're also hoping that it will support equity, because we will have opportunity to meet with the candidate if they so choose, and if the panel feels that that would be more helpful, so that they can also have some say. We're also hoping that by the makeup of the group, that we can monitor to make sure, again, look at consistency of decisions and use it as a learning opportunity. If we agree that the person should be found not suitable, then let's look at that in terms of a learning opportunity to share. Why did we make that decision? What was the reasoning behind it? And if we don't agree with it and we find the person suitable, then again, take that learning, bring it back to the background record check reviewers, and explain to them what the decision was, why the decision was made, so that they can have some discussion about it and learn from it, so that the next time they would say, oh, I remember when I had this case before, 6 months ago, and the appeals panel overturned it, and here's why they overturned it. Here was their reasoning. So let me look at it, making sure that I think about the questions they asked or the view that they looked at it through. And so we're hoping that we can also use that as a learning opportunity. Sarah, all yours.
Excellent. All right. Hi, everybody. So if you have been to one of these engagement sessions before, this should look familiar to you. There are 3 different ways that you can kind of register to become to engage in the questions that Andrew is going to go over soon. On the left-hand side is a QR code, so you can use your phone. If you want to use your phone, just hold your camera up on your phone to that, and then click on the link, and it will take you right away to the Poll Everywhere software. You can also text answers to be recorded. You text one word, early education, to phone number 22333, and then you should get a report back that says something like "Welcome to the poll" or "The poll will be active," and then you're in, and you can respond as we go along. And the third way is just on your desktop using this URL right here, which I will do, which I will put in the chat in just a second. While we are waiting, I am going to make the first question go live. And so those of you who are already engaged, go ahead and start. That question is now active. It's kind of it's a softball question for you. So if you can start participating so that we can just check and make sure people are connected, that would be great.
It's not letting me move.
What do you mean, Andrew?
I can't go to the next screen.
Oh, that's fine. Why don't you just leave this up here for a second, and we'll see what's going on. Andrew, you can actually probably stop sharing, maybe.
Okay. Okay, so the first question: what circumstances support a review appeal? So we know that there are certain, by federal law, mandatory crimes that we cannot override. We can't do it. As much as we may disagree at times with some of that, we can unfortunately have no choice. So are there circumstances that would support a review versus not supporting a review? So does the person have to submit and say, here's why I think you should have a review? And if so, what are those circumstances that the committee should be thinking about at that point in time? Okay, falsely accused. Time it takes to receive results and clearance. Okay. Circumstances committed during youth. Dismiss, close, minors. Okay. Domestic violence. Domestic violence is very near and dear to my heart, and I do think that we have work to do, especially on the domestic violence side and how we look at it. Issues from long ago. If folks can put in maybe how long? 10 years, 20 years, 5 years. Length of time since the incident, not, yeah. Committed during youth. Involved in domestic disputes. I couldn't agree more on that. An employee who has been involved in any domestic disputes, those are not always clear cut. They are never clear cut. Drinking and driving, will never drive. Okay. 7 years. Okay, thank you. Dismissed cases, court cases. Okay, anyone? Decades ago, so 10 years, let's say 10. Working in the program. Okay, yeah. Applicant was a victim of domestic violence, yeah. And I have to say that was one of the things that struck me with the 51A process, was thinking about the domestic violence incidents. 15 years, 10 years, okay. At least 5 years ago, okay. 15. Oh, I'm sorry that it's not clear. So when somebody submits and says, I'd like an appeal, what would be is it just they have to say that, or do you think they need to say a reason as to why they're appealing it? 8 to 10 years. A lot of juvenile issues I'm noticing, so crimes committed by young children, bounce checks. Oh, length of time based on age of offense. That's interesting. 7 years, 5 years if not involving children. Okay. So consider how they're doing at work since they're written performance reviews, and include that maybe in our thought process. Yeah, falsely accused. Okay. Anything that involves children. Okay. So let me just talk a little bit, marijuana, yes, marijuana charge pre-legalization. Those are interesting because they're on there, but you always think if it was today, they wouldn't have been charged. So why are we now looking at it? Dismissed or non-convictions. Denied as a foster parent. Age of candidate and length of time. Okay. That's true. Credit does erase in 7 years. 6 to 8 years. Okay. All right. And we should have a reason. Okay. This is great. Let me just respond real quickly in terms of what are we doing about decreasing the time. It's not an easy fix. I will be quite honest with you. I would hope that it would be, but it's not. And so things that we are doing is, one, we're hoping that by keeping the reviews all in-house in terms of in the BRC unit, that we will see some faster turnaround time. Again, this not having to review between discretionary and presumptive, we're hoping that will help as well. We're starting to look at just the entire process and how we're doing the re-reviews. So for example, it says once it is reviewed, can it then be done? The re-review is so hard for domestic violence victims. It's hard for everybody. And so one of the things we're doing is talking about once you've reviewed it, you don't need to re-review at that point in time. So, and we're looking at what are the reasons for things not moving quickly. We're looking at also what are we asking for information, and are we asking for information that is actually necessary to help us make a decision, or are we asking for it because we think we just should be asking for it? So, okay. Let's go to the next question, and that is, to me, one of the key, and that is, what are the factors that we should be considering when we are reviewing the appeal? So, for example, you know, people had just put up years since the crime. So that to me is definitely a factor. Person's age, how long ago it happened, absolutely, yeah. The other thing is we're talking about that, is we are looking at creating a decision tree where we're hoping that some of these offenses that happened, you know, I'm throwing out right now 10 years ago that were one-time offense, such as, let's say, trespass, that we don't even look at those, that they go directly to a suitability finding. Racism, I agree, the need for us to look through this as a racial equity lens is so important. The seriousness. Seems though that one of the big ones that you were saying is the age when the crime occurred. Definitely important. So really taking into account that person's age as well as from how long ago. No worries, Sarah. References. Oh, I like that. I hadn't. So maybe ask them or let them submit references from people that know them and have known them for some time about, you know, this was a one-time issue or was a bad time for the person, but they've changed. So I like that. I like that a lot, is the references. I agree. Somebody put in to affect childcare, and I agree with you. And people are putting in, you know, did it involve children? I think that is absolutely very important as well. Nonviolent juvenile crimes, employers, okay. Traffic, yeah, there's traffic convictions. I think we have to look at seriously in terms of, do we really need to look at them? Or do we need to look at them only if there's a large number of them versus one time, knowing that nobody ever goes over the speed limit ever. So things like that, absolutely. Okay, this is great. And although it's in this format, and I know Sarah said this wasn't the format she had been planning on for this, we will be able to get these and be able to look at them. So this still works. All right. So here's the next one. And that is, when the panel is looking at this and looking at the reasons and any of the information, what are the standards that we should be looking at to reverse through an appeal? You know, is it just, we like this? Should we be putting down in writing what our decision is fully if it's a reversal? Just what are the standards? Okay. So for juvenile crimes, now married, more hopefully that's going to bring more stability and that they're not a child anymore. Look at what they've done since. I think that's great. Absolutely, we will always make sure child safety is number one. The clean record, I think, is important. That goes to the character of since the offense. Oh, that's a good one. Explaining why the decision and if it's permanent, or maybe we would say we'd reconsider in a year or 2 years. Okay, I like that. Provide precedent for future decisions. I know that Caroline is on here from legal. She probably loves the fact of the precedent. Should be set of guidelines. Don't feel subjective. Yep, okay. Okay, references, where are they now if it was domestic violence? Oh, and a rating scale. I'd like to hear more about that rating scale. So we can have that conversation. Maybe whoever put in the rating scale, if you want, just send me a private chat as to your name so I can maybe reach out to you and we can talk about that rating if you're willing. Explanation of what happened and how they've changed. I think that's really great. you know, how they become insightful in terms of how they've changed. I think that's good. I agree with you. These 15, 20, 35-year court documents, they're very hard. They're probably impossible in some of the courts to even get. So I think we have to start looking at that as well. Yeah. Logical common sense. Hopefully we're going to start using that. Job history. Yep. Great. Oh, I like that about doing it. Did they do a rehab program and get a reference possibly if they could? Yep. Okay, looking at the child. Thank you for that. I'm writing it down right now. Okay. Location of the incident, out of state. Oh, I like that idea. How about a projection system where they may not be alone with children for a period of time to ensure safety? So kind of like a probation, I hate using the word probation, but a probationary period. So you can do this supervised and we'll take a look again in 6 months or a year. And again, I so agree. What is their risk to children? I think that is the biggest question that we need to be looking at with these as well. DCF not providing old records, okay. Simple, okay, I like that. Yeah, simple, not, I agree with you, but one of my concerns of having a 3-member panel is having to come before 3 people who you don't know can be intimidating. So we're gonna have to figure a way to make sure that the 3-member panel is open and not intimidating. Okay, so let's go to the next question. And that is, what's your biggest concern about us doing this? I'm sure you're all thinking to yourself, what's good, what's not, you know, and I'm sure you all are thinking, oh boy, is this just going to be another bureaucratic process? So what is your biggest concern about it? Bias, yep. So how long will it take? I agree with you. We need to make sure that these are not dragging out the process any longer than it already is. I do, yes, in terms of could it be via Zoom to increase comfort, you know, as much as there was so much negative about the pandemic, I think one of the positives was that we've learned how to use these virtual platforms and there is no reason not to do it that way. And especially to make sure that it gives people an opportunity, because if we hold them all in one location, you know, you may need to take work off. If we can schedule around your time as well as do it by Zoom, it becomes much easier. The bias issue, absolutely making sure in terms of the panel that we have some diversity there, absolutely. I hear folks on this lengthy, complicated process. We will make sure that we have ability to make it in multiple languages. Yeah, a lot of people are concerned about the time frame, so we need to make sure that this doesn't do it. Knowing where to go. So yep, we will have to make sure that we include, if we say to somebody they're not suitable, be very clear in terms of what they have to do to ask for the appeal. Remaining objective, yes, absolutely. So yeah, the locating all the documents, I think that's a conversation that we need to be having again in terms of really thinking about why are we asking for each of these documents and making sure that it's really a valid reason. Will brown and black people be on this panel? I'm hoping that my plan is that we will be diverse and that will not be all just white men, to be blunt, but that we will have diversity on there. And it's important to have that diversity for so many reasons. Can this turn into a legal issue for the school? I don't believe so, but anyone can sue for anything. But this is really about EEC. I think we need, I love the word simplicity, swiftness, and making sure that that's all good. I apologize that this has now shown up on my screen, and I'm going to get rid of that right away. Good. Clear. Hard time reaching the BRC. I've heard that a couple times, and I've got some ideas about how to do this, making sure it's fair. If they're approved and then they have an incident after the hire, like everything else, it will have to be reviewed again. Absolutely, information needs to be private. Oh, contradictions amongst various decision makers. That's hopefully why we'll be able to do some consistency, etc. Protected encryption, yeah. Okay. Having an option when sending a message to the help desk that allows for a callback. Yes, we need to be definitely more responsive to those calls. I agree we have to watch for potential dangerous people, but I think sometimes we have good people that also are not allowed in. Yeah, proving dangerous people. I don't think I kind of feel we won't do that, but we'll make sure. We'll watch. Mentorship, yeah. Okay, improved communication, I agree. All right, so while we continue to do this, let me ask this question. When you're thinking about this, you're thinking, Andrew, please do not. What's that blank? What are those blank words? Please do not what with the appeal process? And clearly timeliness is one of them. So please do not make this take too long. But what else? Please do not. I love it. Do not rush. Do not drag your feet. Absolutely, we will continue to engage and ask for your input. And certainly, if folks want to, if you want to reach out and talk to me directly, feel free. Best way is honestly to email me first, and then we can figure out when we can talk. Making it more complicated, which makes it, oh, double. 3 people in a row, really making sure it's not complicated. Sex offender, burden reviewers. Yeah, trying not to burden people, actually trying to figure out systems to lessen the burden. I like that. Don't judge the person by the offense. So much growth and maturity could have happened since the offense. Very true. Assumed by someone's look make those decisions. Absolutely correct. This will not fall off our radar, I can tell you, and get forgotten. And in fact, one of the things I want to do is when we do this for maybe 6 months or a year, depending upon the number, is then go back and really relook at it and say, okay, how are we doing? And we'll have to do some internal review, but we're going to have to hear from you as well. How are we doing? How did this occur? I love that. Don't make the candidate feel like a victim. Absolutely. They may have already been a victim. They may have already had the trauma, and then they have to go through it again. So we need to be very careful about that. We absolutely will not leave FCC out of it. For those that want my email address, it is Andrew, ANDREW, .t.rome, ROME, @mass.gov. We will keep you updated, absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. And I think you're right. We can't be making random decisions. We have to have consistency. My hope is actually not to make this more restrictive. So that's one of the things we're going to have to look at is, what the data shows us in terms of how many did the appeals review overturn, how many did they affirm. So we need to be looking at that as well, and really almost doing some kind of learning circle CQI process on the appeals process as well. Keep providers, yeah. Make it intimidating, absolutely. We need to be open and welcoming. Stop using snail mail, I love it. Yeah, so be more specific instead of allowing for too much interpretation. Yeah, we need to make sure that we keep that communication going. Absolutely. And I would say that between Sarah and the commissioner, they will, they'll make sure that we're not, but I also will not. We need to keep engaged, and we need to keep hearing from the people that are actually involved in these jobs, in these decisions, in these caretaking of our children. Okay, next question. And that is, once you get the determination of not suitable, and we're talking about we want these to not take longer, but at the same time we want people to have an opportunity and to be fair. So what's fair? What should the timeline be from the time you are told you're not suitable till the time that you ask for the appeal? Okay, so 10 days, 60 days, 2 weeks. Uh, 15 to 30. So it looks like right now, 10 or 30 days is the biggie. And I'm going to take 10 as being 10 business days, so that would be the 2 weeks. So somebody put in there depends, so maybe we need to say this is the time frame, but come up with a process where you have the ability to say, here's why I didn't do it in that time frame, and I'm asking for extra time. And I am thinking about, you get a non-suitability, maybe you're away on vacation or you're away dealing with a family emergency, and so by the time you get back, the time frame is already gone. And so maybe we need to make sure that there is a time frame, but at the same time giving some flexibility for some type of reason beyond that person's control. God forbid they are in the hospital and they're not able to do it. Again, you want to be fair on this, and recognizing that people have a life. And unfortunately, life happens sometimes very positive and sometimes not so positive. So we have to be open to that. Okay. All right, so it does looks like 10 is really the big time frame, but 30 is not far behind. So maybe somewhere in between 10 and 30. Okay. What I found is, I will tell you that if a person really feels that they should have disagree with the decision, typically they get it done real quickly. And so we're going to need to come up with timeframes ourselves, also rather quick, in terms of getting these done. What will be difficult is not knowing exactly how many of these appeals we'll get. And so we could set up a system and then be overwhelmed and have to figure that out. So, okay, great. All right, so we do have a couple minutes left. And Sarah has asked that question. What is your favorite season? Okay, so questions, comments? We've got a couple minutes. If somebody wants to put in a question, we can take a look and I can try to answer. I do want to let folks know on the I think it's the 27th, correct, Sarah? The 27th, we will be doing this again between 6 and 7 at night. So if you have anybody that you know that said, oh, I really would have liked to have been on this, or if you leave this and say Andrew Rome deserves a Daytime Emmy Award, and I'm going to tell all my friends and neighbors to participate in this, please let them know that we will be putting out there that on July 27th, 6 to 7, we will be doing this again.
We'll also, just letting you all know, if you joined the licensing regulations session yesterday, we will also be doing an evening session for that one as well. We're just working on the scheduling, but it'll be around the same time as this one, because we heard loud and clear from the field that having an evening session with the interpretation is important. But the other thing to know is that this session and the one yesterday both have live Spanish interpretation that is being recorded, and they are being posted to the engagement portal. And all of the questions that you answered live today will be available both in English and Spanish in survey format, in a static survey format. So if you have colleagues or anybody in the field that would like to engage but couldn't make it today and can't make it to the evening session, they can still participate in full. They can watch the presentation, they can listen to this, they can watch the feedback that did happen, that happened live, and they can provide their own feedback via that survey. Those will be available on the engagement portal, and I'll put that in the chat, the link to it in the chat right now.
So just a couple things, because there's, and I look forward to actually seeing the chats, because I'm not going to be able to get to all of the questions. But one of the questions that I saw out there was really trying to open up the process with a little bit more transparency, so you're not in the dark about what's happening. I was amazed when I came to EEC and started getting some phone calls saying, we've been waiting and have no clue what's happening. And it's like, what do you mean you have no idea what's happening? How is that happening? And so as we've been looking at creating new systems, one of the things that we are doing is actually being able that you will see that it is pending. You will not be, we can't, because of state and federal law, tell you that there is criminal charges and therefore and these are the criminal charges. So, we can't get into that much detail, but we can certainly tell you that it's currently pending, and that we are, we're working on the exact language, but you will know whether or not we are waiting for documentation or whether it is, so that you'll have an idea of what's going on, and because it's not fair to you. And what we found is a couple things, and some is on EEC side, sometimes it's not on EEC side, which is we're working with the individual and they're not necessarily giving you all the information because they're embarrassed. They're not happy that they're having to talk about something that happened a number of years ago. So we knew that, but we're going to do something where we can make it clear for providers, licensors, et cetera, that this is actually, that there is a process and it's not just in the queue. And so you won't know whether have we run the BRC, has it been here, has it been there, but you'll actually have an idea that we are, it's in review process or it's pending or et cetera. And we're working on that language now. And people were concerned initially until they realized that we can say it's in a review process, and that's not disclosing whether it's a criminal history, a DCF history, or something else. All it's telling you is that we're in this process. So we're going there. Provisionally approved ever changed to not suitable. One of the things I have to be honest with you about is I don't really like the word suitable or not suitable. I just think that is such a value judgment. on people. So I'm actually looking to change that. So if anybody has any thoughts about language, let me know, because I do think language matters. And I hear about the, some staff may need to have some assistance, especially trying to go through the court system. I know that many of the reviewers try to help as well, but we can figure out, we can work with you, and sometimes it's just the person needs to sign a consent form for us to then discuss something with you. So we will do that. So the 15-year-olds with fingerprinting, yes, fingerprinting is under BRC, which is under me. It's an ongoing issue. The problem is that it's not an EEC requirement. It's actually larger than that. It's the law. So, but we can certainly look at, are there ways of dealing with the documentation and ability to do that? We also, just to let you know, have started thinking about and working on, is there a way to create an exception for somebody that you have in your home? Mainly, I think this is really just family child care. But if you have somebody in your home who is disabled and not able to go get fingerprinting. So for, you have an 85-year-old mother or grandparent you're trying to take care of, they are not able to get out of bed to go down and get fingerprinted. First off, what risk are they to children if they can't even go for fingerprinting and they can't get out of bed, et cetera? So we are also working on coming up with a process. We looked at the federal law, and we believe that if we create an actual process to do it, and that we are consistent on that process, that we will actually be able to do that. So for those of you that have that issue or are concerned about that, we are actually looking at that at this point as well. I wanted to the fingerprinting, we do not, it's actually the vendor, and it's with their contract with the state that they do not maintain fingerprints on file. They also cannot use the fingerprints other than for some very specific limited purposes. And so unfortunately, we do need to keep going back on those fingerprints. So Anne, if you can email me directly the names of the individuals, I will absolutely take a look at it and maybe have a conversation with you. Because to me, 6 to 9 months is not an appropriate time frame. So if you're wondering what my thoughts are in terms of time frame, 6 to 9 months is way too long for me. We need to do this much sooner. So I will continue to look at the chat, but I know we're starting to run into time, and unfortunately, I need to leave from the western part of the state and get to Chelsea for a meeting at 1 o'clock today with our friends at the FBI. But I'm here. I'm looking at everything you do that you're writing, and it's important to me because as we move forward, as we try to create a better system, a more timely system, a more responsive system, and a more supportive system, I need to be hearing from you what's not working. If you have things that are working, please let me know so I don't do something to mess that up. But it's important to me to hear what those are, what the things are that we're not doing right, so I can look at that and see if we can in some ways make it better. And some of the questions I don't have answers for, but again, by you putting them out there, we can check into it. So is there a way that fingerprints can be changed? We can certainly look at that. I can't make this, who is that? There's somebody that just emailed me about a staff person worked more than 3 years and is up for second review, and pending for almost a year. Again, please email me directly so that we can look into that. The other part is, what's really good about this for me, because you're all going to say, well, he's crazy. Why is he doing that? There's actually a method behind my madness, and that is by finding out what the problem is, I can then look to see, was this one-time case, or is this a systemic issue that we need to be dealing with? That's a really great question. What about people that are not suitable currently? Since we're now creating it, can they reapply? I will be honest with you, hadn't thought about that question. So that's a fantastic question for us to go back and think about and have a conversation about that. So we can absolutely we'll have that conversation and get back to folks. All right. So again, I really want to thank all of you. Thank you for thanking me, but I have to thank you, because you're the ones that are doing the work. You're the ones that are working with our children and giving them opportunities that are so important for them. And it's just, I came into this position almost 4 months. I'm not yet 4 months. There will be on Thursday. And was amazed to realize how much is really behind childcare. And I don't think the public knows as much as they need to know about the fabulous work that you all do and the amount of work that you all do. So again, I really want to thank all of you. And please do not hesitate to email me. If it's a positive, that's great. If it's a negative, that's fine as well. Because we're not going to be able to make improvements if we don't know all of the issues. So I can't promise that every single issue will always be resolved. I can't promise you that the system we're going to make is perfect, but we are going to do our best to make sure that the new system, as we move forward, does not cause more problems, does not cause more time delays, but rather works efficiently and is supportive of each and every one of you and all the people that are working with you in childcare, in residential programs, because the work that you do is our future. I mean, I'm getting there. I'm not a young kid anymore. And those kids that are in childcare and in school right now, they're the ones that I'm going to depend upon in my older age. So it's so important with the work that you all do, because you're supporting not only my future, but your future and this world's future. So I really do want to say thank you to all of you so much. And my title, I'm Deputy Commissioner for Field Operations Central Functions. All right, folks, so thank you again. If you didn't have a chance to put something in the chat, or you put it in and you just want to make sure that Andrew Rome absolutely sees it, feel free to email me or the office.commissioners@mass.gov, and it will also get to me as well. Yeah.
Thanks for joining, everybody. And don't forget to check out the engagement portal. We will post this. We'll post the slides and the extra survey there if you want to take it again. And keep checking back there regularly for new postings, new opportunities. And we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a nice rest of the summer.